Tourette's podcast is not a medical advice show. It's a show about experiences. In the course of that, we may talk about medications or therapies or stories from the doctor's office, but don't mistake any of that for medical advice or direction. It's not. Get that only from people or places licensed or certified to give it. Not from a massively fun and action-packed podcast about our life experiences, such as.
And it's really cool because his friends are actually, he's pretty popular in school. So it's almost like a cool thing for him to have Tourette's. And a lot of his kids are like, oh, well, I wish I had Tourette syndrome, because they don't really understand it's a disability. So they look at it a lot different than how they looked at it whenever I was growing up.
This is Tourette's podcast, made possible with support of the Tourette Association of America and part of the Geeks Rising network. Hey folks, quick intro this week because the main focus for me and for many of you is the Tourette Association of America's inaugural virtual conference starting today, Friday, May 15th, for free through touretteconference.org. Many of you have registered for your picks among the great menu of sessions they've put together. I'm signed up for a bunch of them, looking at the latest science and research, a discussion about how Tourette is regarded in different cultures. And there's stuff there representing kids, representing adults with TS. Like I said, science and research, a lot to choose from, thanks to the support of generous supporters. It's all free. Also, we're back to posting guest blog posts at tourettespodcast.com, and we've had a couple good ones recently. The latest there right now is titled 5 Benefits of Being Cursed. Cursed is in quotes. It's really good. It's generating nice discussion on social media. The author is Paula Jean Ferry, and this is my favorite quote from that article on the 5 benefits of being quote-unquote cursed. Meaning in this case, having a misunderstood disorder like TS. Paula writes, quote, "We get endless practice and become masters of weird situations. And trust me, others are jealous of this. I've been told this on multiple occasions." End quote. Go to tourettespodcast.com right now to read the full thing, the 5 benefits of being cursed. We have a special episode today to kick off and ring in the start of Tourette Awareness Month, which is also today here, May 15th through June 15th. And one thing that was floating around social media this past week was a video of a cool young gentleman standing in front of a big billboard, bearing his image and the words, "Bryson Jones informs us of Tourette Syndrome Awareness Month." And it's up there in big, bold lettering, and under it, it says, quote, "Educate and love." And it has the Instagram handle of Bryson Jones, the young man up there on the billboard. His handle is at Bryson Jones TS. That's BrysonJonests. So if you go there to his Instagram page, you're going to notice 2 main things. For one, you'll see this guy, Bryson. He's 9 years old, and he's accomplished in martial arts. He just got his blue belt, and I'm not messing around. I mean, he's competition level. He's seen as being more advanced than others in his age group. Describing Bryson in his Taekwondo videos, I would say the word is intense, but totally under control. It's really neat to see, and yes, there's a Tourette connection there. You knew there would be. The second thing is that there's some talk in this conversation about CBD. And not only that, but a prescription for THC. And so something I want to say about that before we get started. Number one, this is not an episode promoting CBD or THC. We're still exploring this. The disclaimer stands that this is not a medical advice show. You're going to hear some other elements named on this episode too, but you need to get medical advice from a qualified professional, your doctor, not a podcast. We're all different, and we individually process different things differently. I do ask our guests about the use of CBD and THC in the course of discussing experience with Tourette and efforts to manage it. So it's, what people have turned to in the quest to live a comfortable life with TS. So this is not any different than the times I've asked other people about how they manage it, or if they've been on medication, which of course doesn't always get a glowing review anyway, the various meds that people have taken for TS. Again, talk to your doctor. This is also not the first time cannabis has come up with a guest on the podcast, but I'm just emphasizing the disclaimer here because of Bryson's young age. I know we have parents listening. And the second point on that, on the last episode, we heard from the great Dr. John Walkup on the subject of marijuana as a Tourette treatment. And we heard Dr. Walkup say that, we need more research to know what's really happening with regard to TS when it comes to things like THC. Go back and listen to that episode. We talk about why there's not more research on it as of yet in the United States. There is some work happening in other parts of the world that might get us closer to understanding how THC might affect Tourette symptoms, talking about tics. The Tourette Association of America does have a position statement on medical marijuana, and it acknowledges the lack of scientific research here. It does acknowledge the personal testimonials, but again, the lack of scientific research that we can cite and the federal laws that prevent that research, and the concern with it being applied to young persons with tic disorders. So TAA concludes its position statement by saying this, quote, members of our community who choose to explore medical marijuana as a treatment option should only do so with close medical guidance. The Tourette Association of America neither recommends nor prescribes specific medications, including FDA-approved pharmaceuticals and medical marijuana. But there's so much more to it. This is just a small part of the episode, chiefly in that we also hear from Bryson's dad, Kyle, who was also diagnosed with TS, and actually didn't get the diagnosis until after his son, Bryson, was diagnosed, even though it's been a lifelong thing for him. And with all the rough experiences that can happen, Kyle talks about being bullied, getting into trouble with tics. And he leads us into a talk about how it can frustrate you and get the best of you, when people aren't treating you right, when people are being ignorant. He's made sure that Bryson is above that, above retaliating or channeling that frustration in a negative way. Kyle has made it his mission to give Bryson better than what he got when he was growing up with tics. Here's a quick soundbite of Bryson on his Instagram page.
Hey, my name is Bryson Johnson. I have Tourette syndrome, and don't let your disabilities get in the way of what you love. It just might be your superpower.
That is solid. Really cool father-son story here, and we're going to get right to it.
My name is Kyle Jones. I'm 33 years old, from Oklahoma, and I've had Tourette syndrome my entire life.
Yeah, and I'm Bryson Jones. I had Tourette syndrome for 5 years.
And so, Bryson, how old are you now? Are you 9?
Yeah, I'm 9.
And Kyle, you said you've dealt with TS your whole life too?
Yeah, I wasn't diagnosed until I noticed symptoms in Bryson. And then I Googled everything. Like, I didn't know what tics were. And I've all the information I've gotten it. And I noticed similarities in myself and Bryson. And whenever I got him diagnosed.
So you had things that were kind of unidentified in your life. And when you had Bryson, you saw similar things and you're like, there's a pattern here. This has got to be something.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And there wasn't easy answers back then. Like, whenever I grew up, I went through the getting bullied for tics and getting in trouble in class for tics, getting in trouble by my parents for it. So it was, my parents were uneducated about it. So whenever I seen Bryson, I caught him jerking his neck when he was about 3. And then whenever he had vocal tics, that's whenever I knew he had Tourette syndrome.
Huh. So what did you, Kyle, how did you think about it, I guess, in your own universe? Did you have a name or any questions about it? Or, obviously this is something people pointed out about you.
Oh, yeah, no, I was scared for him. I didn't want him to grow up the way I grew up. So I wanted to find out as much of it as possible and what we can do from there to help him out. But I had knew that marijuana worked for me whenever I was in school. I just didn't know how I could apply that with him being so young at 3.
Right.
We were given the option for SSRI medication for him and antidepressant.
Yeah.
But I had took fluoxetine and escitalopram for my condition, and I didn't like the results of it. So we tried CBD, and then also I was looking up CBIT, comprehensive behavioral intervention, but we didn't have that available in Canada. So
yeah.
I think I Googled cognitive behavioral therapy and I came across Taekwondo. And that's whenever I signed him up for that.
Huh. Okay. So, just in case the audience doesn't know yet, Bryson, his presence on Instagram is focused on martial arts and the discipline of that. And that's, it's really, really inspirational to see because Bryson looks so focused. Bryson, how do you feel when you're doing Taekwondo or martial arts? Are your tics getting in the way, or do your tics kind of go away? Or how do you feel when you're doing that?
Well, I'm mostly focused whenever I do it. I don't really tic a lot because before I do karate, I take my CBD and I also take my zinc to help me before I do it. So whenever I do, I'm mostly focused.
So that helps you focus, and that helps you kind of kind of calm down from any like anxiousness or?
Well, it helps me so I don't blink a lot and so I don't do anything like jumping up in the air or closing my eyes a lot, like blinking too much.
Oh, right. Yeah. So otherwise doing something like karate and having tics like eye blinking, that might get in the way of you kind of defending yourself or?
Pretty much.
So, I mean, there's also got to be a sort of a discipline and a confidence role that something like martial arts can play. Is that what you've seen, Kyle, in terms of just kind of building up the ability to kind of have a sense of control?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I noticed that at tournaments, he comes in first quite a bit, and he's the top of his class. And whenever he gets to spar against other kids, they think that Bryson has a huge advantage over everybody. So they usually put him up against 13, 14-year-old kids.
Wow.
And a lot of times people will say, what's his secret? What's going on? Why is he super focused? And I think a lot of it does have to do with the fact that he's aware of his state and the way he handles himself. Because he also does a diet where he doesn't have any sugar.
Okay.
So, and he exercises daily. He takes zinc, he takes magnesium, and he meditates. So whenever he's in class, he's fully focused. Even right now, you wouldn't know he has Tourette syndrome unless I told you he did.
Do you feel like you have a pretty good handle on it right now? I mean, I know these things kind of change over the years, but at this point in your life, Bryson, do you feel like you got a pretty good control over your Tourette?
Yeah, I do.
That's great. So you mentioned when you were looking up CBIT and CBT and coming across Taekwondo, what was the connection there? Like, how did you find that?
I had seen that that was useful with Tourette syndrome. I think I might have Googled what's good for Tourette syndrome or what can I do if my kid has Tourette's. And I've seen the word cognitive behavioral therapy. Right. And I've also seen this CBIT. And then when I looked at CBIT and habit reverse therapy, I think is another one. But our small town doesn't offer that. So whenever I think cognitive behavioral therapy, Taekwondo and karate were examples, and we do have a Taekwondo studio, so I'll just sign him up and see how it goes. Yeah. He excels at it. And I can see a huge difference. And I can tell with other kids that come in there that have like ADD or ADHD and a lot of stuff that's associated with stress and even benefit from it as well.
So how long has Bryson been, or Bryson, you can tell me, how long have you been doing Taekwondo, and how soon after that do you think you got a better handle on your tics?
Well, I'm all right with my tics and CBD, but I'm not quite sure how long I did karate. But I know that like I've been focused. Like whenever I do it, I'm focused. I'm like I think of nothing except what I'm doing right now much.
Is there anything in particular about Taekwondo, or do you think it's kind of any form of martial arts, whether it's maybe even jiu-jitsu or anything like that, where you have to kind of like think ahead? What do you think the tie-in is there? Just the sense of focus that you have to be successful at it?
Well, I'm not quite sure on that right now. Cool.
What do you think, Kyle?
I think it might be breathing techniques as well as forms and memorization. Okay. In order for him to go to the next belt level, he has to learn a sequence of 16 moves per form. So he does tests, and also I think mainly breathing. I wouldn't say he's suppressing tics, but he has to stand at attention. And also it's giving him the stage where he doesn't grow up embarrassed about it. Where whenever I was a kid, if somebody asked, why are you blinking so much? I was super offensive. And I was on the defense about it. Well, he takes it as an opportunity to let him know, hey, I have Tourette syndrome. This is what happens with it. And it's given him that type of confidence in himself where I didn't have growing up.
So how did you frame it for yourself, Kyle, when you were growing up? I mean, what were your thoughts about it? Did you just think that you just had some unexplainable thing, just something you couldn't control, and that was it? Or were you at the time even kind of curious about what it might be, if it was a neurological thing? Or like, how did you think about it at the time when you were young?
I thought I had a lot of anger just thought I was just a bad kid from hearing it.
Huh.
Because I would have outbursts, or like if I was told in class to not do this or not make this noise or don't be disruptive, I couldn't help it. So like I would just sit in the corner and just be mad at myself or embarrassed of the whole situation. So I honestly didn't know what it was. I knew I didn't like it. I knew I tried to hide it. So when I seen Bryson had it, I wanted to do the exact opposite for him. I wanted to find out what it was and let him be a voice for it. So he would know how to respond if somebody approached him and asked him, what's going on with you? That was the main goal I wanted to get out. So he wouldn't be embarrassed about it. He would know what to say if he got approached like I did.
That's really, I mean, that's sort of like one of the upsides of TS being kind of a hereditary thing. Because if the parent has a sense of direction with that, or at least some experience with it, you know, exactly, you don't want to see the same things repeated in him that were done to you, and the way people regarded you. And, you know, it's easy to kind of stay bitter about things. And you can make the choice to, you know, to educate and make it a positive experience, make it something that's not embarrassing, make it something that you have a sense of control over. And if anybody has a problem with it, then, I mean, they can be dismissed. It's really, really cool that you're there for him in that regard.
And I think I knew whenever I was little, whenever I was younger, I was really good at baseball. I had like really great hand and eye coordination. And I don't know if scientifically correct gives you that advantage, but from what I've seen when Bryson's sparring, it looks like he's a lot faster than everybody.
So you said like the 16 moves thing. Is that what I've seen on Instagram, where he's kind of sparring with a coach and he's got a sequence that he does and he ducks at certain times? And
oh no, that's just his boxing training. He does a list of forms whenever he does tournaments.
Gotcha.
It's almost like a pattern of like a fight sequence.
Oh, gotcha.
Where he's blocking and he's kicking, and he's usually there by himself doing it.
Even that stuff with the boxing coach, though, that looks pretty complex in terms of just being able to kind of get it down and hit at the right time and duck at the right time, and like just having that sense of focus and I guess awareness to be able to know what to do at the right moment, which is something that I don't feel like just anybody could do. And, you know, he hits hard and hits confidently. I mean, it's really cool to see.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's what I used to always tell him too. Like I think Tourette syndrome might be a superpower for him.
Yeah.
And that's how he usually looks at it, because if you put him up against an average 9-year-old kid, it's not fair. So, and then that's what they do in his class. So if he ever spars against somebody, it's going to be somebody that's at least 3 years older than he is.
Yeah. Well, Bryson, do you think that doing martial arts is something that other people with TS should get into? I mean, do you think it's going to help them the same way it's been helping you, or?
Yeah, I think it'll help people with it because because I feel confident in myself that I can do this. I believe in myself, and that's how I get my focus up. Yeah.
Is this something you do pretty much every day?
Every Tuesday and Thursday.
Do you have to practice in the meantime?
Sometimes, mostly Wednesdays.
Yeah, he does boxing on Wednesdays. He does Taekwondo on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Mondays and Fridays he usually goes over his form. So he's basically doing something every day, and he might have like one day where he's just relaxing. He doesn't have too many tics, and whenever we were getting him diagnosed at first, it was whistling, neck jerking, snapping fingers, jumping up and down, vocal tics where he would go, and kids would ask him or look at him, and he wouldn't know how to explain it to them. So he would get defensive like I did. So that's whenever we taught him that, just to tell him, hey, I got this. This is why I have it. Nothing to be embarrassed about. And that's where his Instagram came into picture, because I was thinking, well, if I can get him to tell as many people as possible what's going on, and muscle memory will take over, and it'll be super easy for him to talk about it.
That's cool. So what kind of feedback have you gotten from the Instagram page?
Well, we get a lot of parents asking if what CBD is doing for him.
Yeah.
And that's usually the reaction we get, because a lot of people are similar to I am. They don't want to put their kids on antidepressants because of the risk of suicide thoughts and all the dangers that come with it. So that's usually what we get, and they want to know like what his diet is, what his plan is, what he's eating, what he's taking, but also he's a medical marijuana card holder.
Okay.
And it's legal to work from, but that was the main reason I got him the card, is so if he did fail a drug test with the CBD, then we'd be okay.
Gotcha.
So that's usually the type of stuff we get is martial arts helping him. What else does he do? What's his diet like? What's his school like? And how can he tell his friends without being embarrassed? And it's really cool because his friends are actually, like, he's pretty popular in school, and especially the way they see him do martial arts. So it's almost like a cool thing for him to have Tourette's. And then that's kind of the message he sends out to people, that, hey, I have a disability, but it's not stopping me from doing this. And a lot of his kids are like, oh, well, I wish I had Tourette syndrome, because they don't really understand that it's a disability. So they look at it a lot different than how they looked at it whenever I was growing up.
We'll be right back. The Tourette Association of America is the premier nonprofit working to raise awareness, advance research, and provide ongoing support to those with Tourette syndrome or tic disorder. With a network of over 130 chapters, support groups, and centers of excellence, the TAA engages with communities across the nation in an effort to provide tools, webinars, workshops, and support for all seeking assistance. As a primary sponsor of Tourette's podcast, the TAA supports the authentic conversations showcasing the diverse representation of the TS community. To learn more, visit Tourette.org, TOURETTE.org. So with the medical marijuana, are there guidelines for like different age groups, people his age? Are there like risk factors or anything like that are discussed with professionals who prescribe that stuff, or how does that work?
Yeah, so for him in Oklahoma, we had to get him. We had to get 2 doctor recommendations, and for us to even get that, he had to have a history of having Tourette syndrome. So he had the vocal tics and the physical tics for at least a year to get diagnosed with Tourette syndrome. So after that, we got 2 doctor recommendations in Tulsa, who's in Tulsa, Oklahoma heart clinic. And then they recommend a 4-to-1 ratio, meaning 4 CBD, 1 THC, and that's safe for a kid. And so that's what he's currently taking. He received that from Tulsa Cannabis Company in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so that's what he's currently taking. He takes that. He takes magnesium, zinc, and his diet. He doesn't have any sugar whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And see, because I noticed for me, because I don't have Bryson's discipline, whenever I drink an energy drink, my tics go crazy. Yeah. Like if I'm drinking water and I'm doing what he's doing, exercising, meditating, taking zinc, magnesium, and the same CBD, I'll notice my tics will disappear. And I'll go about 6 days, and then I'll feel like, oh, okay, I'm normal. My tics are gone. And then as soon as I start cheating the diet or drinking an energy drink or eating anything not healthy for me, then here it comes. It comes right back.
So you know more about this than I do with the zinc and magnesium. What do they do? And how did you arrive at knowing that those were things that might help you?
Well, Bryson got really into exercising, and I looked up immune boosters, and I just wanted him to be healthy. And then with the magnesium, I was looking at neurological disorders and what can I take to for a neurological disorder, and magnesium came up.
Okay.
So I needed that into his diet, and I've seen it help.
It's such a big mystery trying to figure out what's going to work. And, CBD may not work for everybody. SSRIs may work for some people. And I'm also curious too, when you and Bryson both got the diagnosis, did you guys kind of go together? Was it the same doctor who diagnosed you?
Well, no, because he got diagnosed actually before I did.
Okay.
I think I might have got diagnosed 6 months later.
Okay.
Whenever we seen it, I had noticed it a year prior. So he was probably 2 years old whenever I noticed he just kind of moved his neck a certain way. And then whenever he was 3, he would shrug his shoulders. And I want to say he probably got diagnosed about 3.5, almost 4 years old. And then his mom, as well as my mom, didn't understand what Tourette syndrome was. They just thought, oh, well, he's just being a kid. He'll grow out of that. And so, like, I had to kind of convince them a little bit too. And then also the doctors were like, well, no, it's nothing. And I was, well, I've also had the same thing, and I grew up with it, so I can see it. And whenever he got diagnosed, I went ahead. Well, they offered us antidepressants. That's whenever I got diagnosed. Because I didn't want him to try it without me trying it first. So that's how I was able to get access to the medication, by getting myself diagnosed.
So have you seen a change in yourself and how you're ticking? You mentioned, like avoiding sugar and energy drinks and things like that, but the other adjustments to your life, do you have a pretty good hold on your ticking? And
yeah, I definitely do. It's really unnoticeable now. So that's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes I fool myself and think, hey, my ticks are gone. Like, I cured myself, and then I'll have an energy drink, and then I'll start throwing my neck around, or I'll notice myself going, so.
Yeah, that's a tick I used to have.
Yeah, and then I can suppress it, and then when I'm alone, you got to make up for what you suppressed. So, but if I exercise, and if I stay away from sugar, and if I have the 4-to-1 ratio like Bryson has, and if I take magnesium and zinc, I'll go all day without ticking, and I don't have to suppress it or make up for it, as long as I stay on that pattern.
Wow. Well, so between you and Bryson, sometimes Tourette syndrome comes with other things too, like sleep issues, anxiety, depression, OCD-like tendencies. Have you guys seen that kind of thing in yourselves, or is it purely more of a ticking thing?
No, I definitely have. I knew, like, I had behavioral issues. I had morbid obsessive compulsive disorder. I've also been real impulsive, or I know, like, I was probably unpleasant to be around a lot of times, because, like, things have to be done my way, and I noticed that I was like that whenever I felt like I had OCD and I couldn't control it.
Well, Bryson, do you have trouble getting to sleep, or anything else that seems like it's kind of difficult to deal with?
Yeah, I have a feeling like that sometimes. It's kind of hard for me to sleep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that happens to me quite often.
Does that ever interfere with your energy level when you're doing Taekwondo?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, so you're able to still kind of get in the game. And I'm just guessing here, but I feel like it's kind of important for Bryson at his age to be involved in something like martial arts, or something that gives him a sense of command, because you can kind of get ahead on some of these, I guess, effects of depression and anxiety, like isolation. I would self-isolate a lot, and I developed this like really, really extraordinary shyness where I didn't want to fail in front of other people. I didn't want to be sort of at the center of the stage. I just kind of wanted to be left alone. And early on, being involved and good at something like martial arts seems like that would kind of change that track.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's what I was saying. Like, I'll notice at tournaments, he's not nervous at all. He's focused. He's ready to win. And I agree, because I was the exact same way. Like, I disassociated a lot, and I went through it being embarrassed about it. And suppressing tics in front of family members and suppressing tics in front of friends, just so I wouldn't have to deal with that. And so it was even kind of challenging to let my mom know, like, hey, you just have to ignore Bryson's tics and just let him tick. Like he can't control it. If you bring it up and bring attention to it, you're just making it worse. Mm-hmm. And even still, she didn't really believe that it was an actual thing until like I put pamphlets in front of her.
She thought it was like something that was just like on TV, or because I've heard other people say that too, that they think it's just some sort of like pop culture invention and it's not something that actually affects people. It's more of like a made up thing.
Yeah. She definitely did think that. It's just because of the lack of information or just being uneducated. Like my wife and I have to continuously let the school know, like, hey, just because you don't see him ticking doesn't mean stuff's not going on in his head. And
right.
So, I mean, that's really it. That's kind of like what happened with me looking up all these stuff to help us with therapy and CBIT. Like the resources weren't available. So that's what led us into just trying to cope with it the best we could. And what we found is actually really been working for us.
So at school, you mentioned just kind of having to remind them. How's that been? I mean, does he have like an individualized education plan, or is he just kind of learning in the same kind of classroom setting as everybody else? Or how has Tourette syndrome been kind of a part of his education experience?
Well, he's learning just like everybody else is. He'll have some difficulty. I think it's in language arts. He kind of has a little difficulty in there, and mm-hmm. He just needs a little bit more time, or a different way to learn. And he's not giving that. When we bring it up, it's kind of like, oh, well, it's made up. So that was really one of the reasons we did the Instagram, to give him some support, and then to show him, hey, your kids like you. But I think they're coming around now that he has kind of a little following, and people are starting to notice, and he's talking about it.
Bryson, what grade are you in?
Third grade.
Do you think the people around you at school have a sense of what you deal with, or do you think people seem uneducated about Tourette syndrome?
A little bit.
Do you tick when you're in class, and do people point that out about you?
Well, I do tick in class, but not very much people notice it.
What about your teachers?
Well, I don't know if they noticed it or not. That's the one thing that I kind of think about sometimes. I don't know if they know it or not. That's why I'm trying to, Well, I'm trying to tell them that, like that's how God made me. I can't control it.
Yeah, it's almost like TS was something, or Tourette syndrome was something that was kind of given to you. You know, it's a part of you, and you're using it in a really positive way. I mean, you guys are doing an amazing job advocating for yourselves. And what advice, Kyle, would you give to other parents who are in the same shoes as you, and maybe you're not so understood where you live, or in the school system, or because I get emails from a lot of parents who are in that same position, and they don't know exactly how to approach it. What advice would you give?
I would just say that to tell them that you're not alone, and to love your child. It's still your kid at the end of the day, and mm-hmm. just show them love and support, and don't punish them for having tics, and just know that they can't control it, and know that whenever you try to make them stop to appease yourself, that you're just causing damage to the case. Because I know that's where that's what I hated growing up with Tourette. Like if I was embarrassing my parents, I felt terrible and worthless. So I would just remind them that that's what the kids go through if you're trying to force them to stop ticking. And also that there's a light at the end of the tunnel if you take care of yourself.
Thanks for listening. Give your feedback in an email to tourettespodcast@gmail.com. Better yet, record a voice memo on your phone and send it there, tourettespodcast@gmail.com again. And you can hear it played on the show. You can find this and all past episodes of the podcast at tourettespodcast.com and at geeksrising.com, the network that carries this podcast to a greater audience. By the way, shout out to Bandrew, the owner of Geeks Rising. I'd like to congratulate him on 5 years of podcastage. That's his wildly popular YouTube channel that focuses on the audio gear part of podcasting. He's reviewed hundreds and hundreds of microphones and other pieces of equipment in sort of a laboratory kind of way. 5 years of podcastage, 5 years of reviewing mics and audio interfaces and other gear. Shout out to Bandrew Scott. Grateful to him for his support of Tourette's Podcast. The Tourette Association of America makes Tourette's Podcast possible. With its support, please go to tourette.org to learn more about Tourette syndrome and the programs and resources they have for the community. The virtual conference is happening now, May 15th and 16th. Really cool variety of sessions you can check out for free. Go to touretteconference.org. If you have a personal story you'd like to share of living with TS, you can go to mytourette.org. That's where you'll find a virtual quilt stitching these stories together. This is another project of the Tourette Association. Join the Tourette's Podcast discussion group on Facebook to talk about episodes or pose questions or comments to the community. It's a fun hangout. Our admin is Sophia in the UK. She keeps everything going there. We're on Instagram and Twitter. Just look us up, Tourette's Podcast. Patreon.com/Tourette's Podcast. If you'd like to give a small amount of individual support to the show, it does help. Thank you so much for listening and happy conference going. This is Ben.